Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming to Inside Mother History, Fireside Chat. I have the distinct pleasure this evening of interviewing Mufasa. Well, let's start right at the very beginning. Please tell us where you grew up and a bit about your family.
Let me remove this so that you can see my eyes. I grew up in, thanks for having me. This is really a great honor. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey. So I'm a tri-state New Yorker, New Jersey, Connecticut type of person. And it was great having New York at your doorstep, especially in the 70s and the 80s, when the Saint was around and the big clubs were around, and the seediness of New York was still around, pretty much. But it was great growing up there.
What made it so great?
Just having access to a number of things, being able to go to any corner newsstand and kind of buy whatever magazine you wanted. Having access to the city, all the culture, all the things, and growing, and as I started to know more about myself, there were a lot of outlets that were available in the city that were easily accessible back then.
When we were preparing for this chat, you depicted having grown up in a church community. You said that your family church actually was sort of a village in its own right. How so?
Well, I grew up in a Black Pentecostal church family, the Church of God in Christ, which is the largest Black Pentecostal denomination in the U.S. and probably the world. And our family church was basically, everyone was aunt, uncle, even if they weren't related to you. So even to this day, when my family comes home to New Jersey, the church family welcomes them, and we have dinners and a number of those types of things, which is a little bit unusual for a Pentecostal church. They don't talk about it, but they show it in love, that they love my family, our children. They've christened my children at their altar, and I'm allowed as a minister to sit in the pulpit there. So again, it's probably don't ask, don't tell, but there is a stream of love that I grew up with throughout my growing up that made my particular experience one that was wonderful and not crazy.
Fill us in a little bit on that. Why was it so wonderful?
I think the amount of love and the amount of attention that I got there. Our family was one of the founding families of the church, of that particular church. My mother married into that church family from another Church of God in Christ family. So it was on both sides, so I couldn't escape it. I was born into the church. And so the music, the food at great events, and marked many milestones there about me finding myself and spiritually being loved and understanding and coming up with a sense that really God does not hate me. I think a lot of people come out of the Pentecostal church or a lot of church experiences with ideas that God hates them. Why, God, why did you create me this way? And they try to pray it away, and then they try to do everything to eliminate what is intrinsically themselves. And I didn't grow up with that. Now that was my particular experience. I took it that way. My family was always about education, always about making sure that that was first and foremost in my life, as well as the church, as well as a sense of spirituality. But it wasn't necessarily forced down my throat, or I wasn't dragged to the altar to be prayed over, those types of things. And so I think it gave me a really good sense of spirituality, and that's probably why I'm ordained today.
Talk with us a little bit about that. You're an ordained minister. Fill us in. What goes into that? What drew you to that?
I think my natural sense of spirituality drew me to that. Actually having a great experience in the church and understanding who God was in my life. And so, but I didn't want to be ordained just anywhere. I had to kind of find my place. I knew that back home wasn't quite the right place, knowing that I was out and had a family and husband and children. And so I waited until I was connected with the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries. And it's under Bishop Yvette Flunder out in California, out in Oakland, California. And it's a place where we can be all of ourselves, we can be our whole self. So we have gay ministers, lesbian ministers, trans ministers. God is for everyone, and so we are affirming, we're open, and that's where I felt the need to be ordained. I attended seminary at Chicago Theological Seminary, United Church of Christ Seminary, which again is open and has an LGBT area of study. And so they are very open in and of themselves, and that was also a place for me to express myself and be open, be able to be open and understand who I am in God and who God is for me.
Maybe for the benefit of the audience, would you depict the difference a little bit between Pentecostal religion and where you are now? What is the difference between these two that really delineates them?
There really isn't a difference in the worship style. There's a difference in how each church views their own doctrine. And even amongst the Pentecostal churches, each of them has a different doctrine that they follow, a moral doctrine that they follow. Again, since the church that I'm currently serving as associate pastor is a Metacostal church, metaphysical Pentecostal. So we are probably even more open than traditional Pentecostal churches, but it comes from a sense of understanding that we are all God's children. If God came to save the world, God came to save the world. No matter if you believe in God or don't believe in God, but that God is good, is the goodness of the world. So the Pentecostal faith is one where we are open to the Spirit, the moving of the Spirit, speaking in tongues, and dance, and all of those types of things that go into a worship experience for us. But individually, the doctrines differ amongst the churches.
What's the basis of your theology?
The basis is that God is all, and that we all are God's children. And in that, we all have a place of good. We all are good. We may stray. We may go away from what we consider the voice of God. But again, that's our learning experiences. And so God does not hate anyone. If God came for everyone, we should see the good in everyone, and we should try to do good, bring heaven to earth, as it is in heaven. And so that's my philosophy.
Tell us how Onyx was founded.
Well, sitting around a dining room table, back in the early 90s, I started to attend a number of other events, and along with a friend of mine, David, and we traveled to Pantheon, and we traveled to MAL, and other places, and about that same time, the cell block was opening on Halsted Street, and he lived right across the street from the bar, and I lived around the corner from the bar. And I believe we met initially on the dance floor at Manhole, down the street. So we looked at the leather clubs that were existing, and we had met some people from Icon Detroit in our travels. And we knew that they had a club there. And we saw that there were some other clubs here in Chicago, but there wasn't a large presence of men of color in any of those clubs. So we didn't see anyone that looked like us. And I brought up the idea to him as to, well, why don't we start our own club? And we went into Cell Block, and I had gone in and spoken with David Boyer, or Patty, who was the manager at the time.
Patty Brown.
Patty Brown, yes. And they were okay with the idea of welcoming us if we were to start a new club. And so I said, well, David, I'll start this up if you can find me some more board members besides yourself. And he introduced me to Steve, to Stephen and Nate and Wes. And they had been kind of hanging around the community, on the edges of the community, and had never joined any other club. And I brought them together and asked them all to be my first board. And they agreed. We sat down for 1 year to plan out this organization. And we did not allow anyone else to join for a year. We planned our bylaws with the help of Trident Windy City and Icon. We looked at other clubs, Amigos Latinos, Asians and Friends. We looked at them to see how they were structured because we were a men of color club. And we didn't want to discriminate against anyone. The question was on the table again. 3 of our members had Caucasian partners. And the question on the table was, how do you feel about your partner not being able to be a full voting member of this organization? And the answer came back that they were fine with that this was something, specifically a need that needs to be met, a place for us to, quote unquote, not get outvoted if there were things on the table that we needed to have happen. So if we wanted fried chicken at the annual dinner, we could have fried chicken at the annual dinner. Or if we wanted old school music at our dance, we could have old school music and not electric techno music. Not to say that, of course, you're not going to get disagreements and votes one way or the other. But again, there was a purpose. That men of color needed a place to come together to talk about issues that were germane to men of color. And that don't always get put on the table in other instances. Such as if we're in a flogging scene and you've never flogged someone of color before and their skin is too dark to see red, what do you do? How do you handle that? There are other things intrinsic in the African American culture concerning flogging and being whipped and other things and other topics that don't always come up in other circles, but they always come up in the circle of Onyx. And that's what the intention was. A bridge to the general leather community. There weren't a lot of black men or Latino men walking in off the street to Cell Block or to leather bars. And if they did, they might turn around and go back out. So it was intentional to try to build a community here in Chicago at first. And as we gained associates outside of Chicago, then came the idea of people outside of Chicago asking for other chapters, asking how could they be connected. We had the snail mail list before the internet. I used to write some newsletters, my husband used to write newsletters, Other people used to write newsletters. We used to put it in the mail, get it out. People started coming to IML. We started a dance, the very first dance at IML, because it was said that leather men don't dance. But we said, we do, and we're leather men. So we asked for space at IML. It was granted to us, and 20 years later, we're still going strong and doing the dance at IML as well as other events across the country. Another thing is that the general leather community wasn't giving. We were in the throes of the HIV crisis, and the leather community in general was not giving to people of color organizations, and our people, the African American people, Latino people, were being affected as well as all people were. And our fundraising, a lot of our fundraising went to those organizations that were helping the African American community, HIV organizations in the African American and Latino communities. At that time, Minority Outreach Intervention Project and others that were doing that type of work. We also gave to orphanages. We also gave to the Leather Archives as part of what we wanted to do. Our colors are hung there. We gave one of the first bricks. So we see a wider scope of our need for giving and fundraising, and as who we are, and that helps us out a lot as well as the community.
How have you seen the dance at IML evolve over the years?
I think from us having to go to the lobby and pull in people to the third floor of the Congress Hotel and say, we're having a dance upstairs, don't go out to the bars, come upstairs and be with us. Our friends from Icon Detroit were with us in that first dance. Zion Flair, who is a very well-known community activist and, what would you say, party host,
General personality.
General personality in the community here, was there in heels and booty shorts and has been at our dance every year. And it's grown in that people see our hospitality, people see our genuineness, people see us just wanting to have fun and be who we are. And 1,500 people later, it's evolved into one of the prime events at IML each year.
That's true. Unfortunately, these days, the cell block isn't much to write home about, but how was the cell block when you were first bringing your club group there?
Patty was great. The bar was great. It had a dance floor. And we used to, on our club nights, which were on Sunday nights, we used to cook. We used to, each month, there was a different set of cooks who had charge of that night, and we would cook a meal and bring it to club night and sell plates for fundraising. One of our associates would make us cupcakes, double chocolate cupcakes every month to go with the meal. So we would come, we would dance, we would socialize, we would eat, and we would have a great time. It was a great place for us.
Well, Onyx is now celebrating its 20th anniversary. How do you feel about that?
Thank you. I'm ecstatic. Again, never would I have thought. And again, when you're founding something, you don't think. You're trying to think of the next day or the next, can we get through the year? We've had arguments, we've had disagreements, we've had votes that don't go my way or someone else's way. But through it all, we're still together, and larger than we were when we started. After that first year, people started to write to us. We advertised in Gay Chicago and Windy City Times. That's what you did back then. And in order to kind of draw people, or hopefully that people will see who you are in word of mouth. And my husband was the first member. I had lost my partner a year before that. Met him when he came to join the organization, and we've been together ever since. So we're almost celebrating along with Onyx, how long we've been together and in relationship. So it's just, I think, a testament of the need, and that what we thought would work did work, and has worked, and is still introducing people to the community at large.
Well, when we were preparing for this, you mentioned that Onyx is actually founded on the concept of a village. How is that?
Well, I think that each of us is each other's brother. And again, we have associates that can be any gender, any race, and are welcome at all of our events except for our business meetings. So we invite everyone in. Hospitality is the notion, and welcoming, that we are all brothers, we're all sisters, together, and together we can make this happen. And so we have wonderful female associates, and Jill Carter and Viola Johnson, and Goddess Lakshmi in Detroit, and Mistress Lily in Detroit, and Lady D in Atlanta. We have a women's auxiliary called the Onyx Pearls. If you know anything about African American fraternities, they always have women that are sweethearts to the fraternity. And so that's kind of where that comes from the traditional African American fraternity, sorority, Greek system type of thing. And so they are our associates, and they do fundraising, and they do a number of different things in support of their brothers. So we care for one another. The internet has been our best friend as an organization. Now we can reach out, people can find us, people can find our events, people can see that we are what they might have been looking for a long time. And that wasn't as visible before the internet. So the internet, especially with the African American population, Latino population, has been our best friends because they can be in their homes. They don't have to be out at the bar to see who we are and then accept the invitation to the bar.
Tell us a little bit about Onyx membership. How do people become members, serve on the board?
We have a traditional pledge process, interest groups. We have a pledge master on each of the boards of the chapters: Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, Southeast, which is Atlanta, Northeast is New York, Mid-Atlantic is based in DC, here in Chicago is Midwest. We're starting Southern California and Northern California chapters as well. And there's a pledge master on each of those boards who gets applications from interested parties, interested people, starts a relationship with them. We are having, say, an interest group meeting this Sunday for Chicago. We met the pledges in Mid-Atlantic when we were there for Mid-Atlantic Leather, because there's a line going on there. So it's a traditional, again, fraternity line, but the pledge process is one of learning. It's one of learning and finding out more about yourself, and especially as it relates to leather and your fetish life. So they go through the history of Onyx, the history of the leather community, the history of notable people of color in the leather community, They read the Leatherman's Handbook, they read Leather, Sex, they read Kay Berlinger's Black Men in Leather. They read a number of different books. They come together and talk with one another. They go through like a 6-page list of fetishes.
Wow.
Have you tried this? Have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? Because again, we want them to see the broad spectrum of what the fetish world is. So they go through that. It's a minimum of 3 months.
Wow.
And then, as deemed fit to move into the organization, they've also gone through interviews before they've entered into the line. They've met with the board. They go through interviews with the body who votes on them as to whether they're allowed to come onto the line. They come onto the line, they pass through, they're questioned again, and there's another vote by the body. So it's a very democratic system.
What's the biggest misconception about Onyx?
The biggest one we get is that we're a sex club. And from the outside looking in, especially in the people of color community, because we're open, because we're sex positive, it appears that way to some people, and they want to join or they want to be there because they feel it's a sex club. We tell them no, it's not. We educate them. People still want to believe what they want to believe, and will believe what they want to believe. And sometimes we invite them to an event and they're like, oh, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And they don't come back. But some stay. And it's those people that understand, and even when they're told who we are, that understand and want to learn and are eager to learn. And we're finding more and more young people in their 20s entering into Onyx, entering into the leather community. And I couldn't be more happy and more proud that we're able to mentor them.
How do you see the inclusion of more men of color in the leather contest circuit?
I think that once one learns and has a comfort with themselves, then they can see themselves on stage, and then they can see themselves as representing the community. It kind of ebbs and flows with the number of men of color that we have in the contest, and most years we can count them on one hand. But we're there. And the representation is what's key. And we vow to mentor. We have a number of title holders who are in Onyx, especially our own Remy Pierre, who is International Mr. Leather, 2014, and I was Mr. World, 2006. We have Joey Boynton, who is a Leatherman of color. We have a number of other people who can mentor others that want to move into the contest circuit. And so we do have the resources within to do that. I own the Leatherman of Color contest. I started that contest so that we would always have representation on the stage. It's not about winning, it's about getting up there. It's about representing the community that you're from, because only one can win. And with Olympic scoring, it's a crapshoot sometimes. I've competed in the contest as the Onyx Leatherman in 1997, and have mentored a number of people. One of my boys was Mr. Southeast Leatherfest. Another is the American Rubberman. So we have the resources, and we want to see more men of color when they're ready to step out on the stage and represent themselves. one thing to help represent the community, but it's another thing to be able to represent yourself, and say, I'm ready, let me get out there and show everyone who I am.
What are your thoughts, though, on Radiant's win for IML?
I loved it. We were not there because our oldest son was graduating from college that same weekend. But we got it on the cell phone. We were texted that he won. And we couldn't be more proud of him. I couldn't be more proud of him. The club couldn't be more proud of him. His brothers could be more proud of him. He's a great, wonderful guy. He is, I've seen him work a room, and he does that with ease and with finesse. I couldn't ask for a better representative.
You said that Onyx is the last functioning all-male club in Chicago. Why is that? Or how is it?
Well, there are fetish clubs that are here, I guess, as traditional clubs. Someone told me the other day that the Defenders were still around. I didn't know if they were or not, but the last functioning traditional male club, we do know that there are fetish clubs that do exist, and most of the other clubs are pansexual clubs. And so I think that just, again, in who we are, and understanding that we welcome everyone as a level of membership, as full brother or an associate of Onyx. And we operate in the fact that we are a brotherhood and that we are a fraternity. And so even on our annual run, we do stipulate that most of the events are geared toward men. That doesn't stop our female associates from coming to play parties, to whatever. They've seen it before, they said. So they come. That hasn't stopped them from coming. And so we are a traditional male fraternity.
Well, you love to cook, and you actually appeared on television's Master Chef Season 4. How did that happen?
It was actually before an Onyx function that I decided to go down and try out, an audition. I saw it in the Red Eye. I didn't prepare for it. And I said, well, we have a meeting at 4. This is at 8 in the morning. I can go down to the Cordon Bleu and audition and see what comes out of it. I did crawfish corn chowder, one of my favorite dishes, and took it down. I was filling out the application in line that morning with Gordon Elliott, trying to film intro pieces. And filled out the application, was one of the first people in line. Got inside, and they loved my dish. And swept 4 of the 25 people into another room. Questioned us again about our dishes, about our lives, about who we were, and swept us into another room and said I got a call back. Many contracts and tests and physicals later, I ended up on TV.
What were your thoughts on that? How did that feel?
It's exhausting. It was a wonderful experience meeting all the 100. There were 100 of us who made it out of 35,000.
Wow.
And up at 6 on the set, it was cold in California, believe it or not, in January. Back in the room at 10 o'clock at night, cooking, filming, all in my collar, because I guess I was to portray the pastor or the preacher as to who I was. Women were cooking in heels, and so it's all for TV, yes, all for TV, all for the drama of it all. Had sheep running around us because we were going to cook lamb that day. So it was a great experience. I hated being away from home, but they took away our cell phones, they took away our computers, they took away all forms of communication while we were there because we were sequestered. And so no tips from home, no recipes, flown in. So it was a great experience, though. I loved it. Would I do it again? I don't know. But it was a great experience. Loved it. Made it to the top 40 before it was sent home. But it was great. It was great meeting the people from across the United States and hearing their stories and tasting their food and those types of things. So it was great.
You actually did make it onto television?
Yes, so if you go back to season 4, there are a lot of shots of me. I don't understand why, but there are a lot of shots of me. Maybe I'm cute or something. But there are a lot of shots of me looking over my shoulder and looking back and cooking and a number of things in the first 2 or 3 episodes. So I did make it onto TV.
If you could change anything about your leather journey, what would you change and why?
I think I really don't want to change anything. I think I would have liked to have started earlier, maybe. So I would have had much, much, much more experience and many, many more good times and understanding and growing into it, of course, in my late 20s, early 30s. I think that it would just be, to have seen that era where it was really, really old guard leather, and seeing that and understanding more of what that was firsthand. I had great mentors and great people in my life that I've met and was able to meet Jill and Vi Johnson and Jill Carter very early on. Actually, my husband met them first, and they questioned him as to who I was, and finally met me, and they've been my parents in leather ever since. And so I thank them for that, and I thank the community for understanding who I was and who Onyx is as we grow and as we grow together.
What words of wisdom or mentorship can you afford younger people or new people cutting into the scene?
I think that that everyone's journey is their own journey. Don't try to be like anyone else, but find yourself through other people. Ask the questions. There are no dumb questions. There are no taboo questions, because someone has experienced it, someone has been through it, someone knows what it's about. And the Onyx network can point you in that direction. So if I don't know how to do it, there's a brother that does. He may not be here in Chicago, he may be in DC, he may be in California, but I can network you to those people that you need to talk to. And that's been the beauty of Onyx, and that's been the beauty of our network. Being able to understand and see that, there's someone into sounding. At our last anniversary, there was a sounding class, a sounding demo, there was a sounding circle, I believe, that they had in one of the hotel rooms. Someone is into something else, and so people start to find each other, and that's the beauty of it, and that's the network, that's the village. It extends not only in Chicago, it extends to New York, it extends to DC, it extends everywhere in between, because we're connected.
I would like to thank you for an amazing interview, and I thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank everyone for coming out.